This is DRF Race of the Day. Hi everybody, Dan Illman here with the DRF Race of the Day for Wednesday, January the 12th. Let's throw up the field for race number 9 at Gulfstream Park. We're going the about 5.5 furlong distance on the new Tapeta surface at Gulfstream. This race for newly turned 3-year-old fillies. It is a Florida-bred entry-level allowance, and you can download free formulator past performances on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Access them, handicap along with me, and when you've made your final determinations, you can play this race in the entire Wednesday Gulfstream card with your DRF Bets account. Let's throw up the Timeform US Pace Projector because I really believe that pace, an important handicapping factor in this race especially. The 8 Poema is very fast, coming off a gate-to-wire win going 3/4 of a mile, but she's not the only speed in this race. The 7 Naughty Naughty, breaking directly to her inside, has been on the lead in her 2 prior starts. And the number 3, David's Rose, is coming off a very impressive gate-to-wire winner on dirt as well. Those 3 horses I expect are going to try for the lead. The 3, the 7, and the 8. And if this pace really heats up, it could set things up for a stalker or a closer. One of those horses that fits the bill, the number 1, Mount Sinai. Now, Mount Sinai was bet heavily for her career debut back in November, a race on dirt in which she had significant trouble. She was claimed out of that race by Steve Classaris. Classaris moved her to Tapeta for start number 2, and that race paid dividends for Mount Sinai. Let's watch the replay. 5/8 of a mile on the Tapeta. She was able to get close to the pace, and it was a pretty solid pace. You see her making her move on the outside, and she draws away to win with a competitive 61 Beyer speed figure. That speed figure really puts her in the mix in this race, and at 8-1 on the morning line, you could do a lot worse than a horse that's sharp, a horse that has enough tactical speed to get position in this short 5.5 furlong event, and a horse that could take advantage if there is some hitting up front. Mount Sinai, an interesting contender, and one to keep an eye on, especially if she goes off close to that 8-1. The number 2 is Arrow Shape, and Arrow Shape was a debut winner on dirt way back in May in gate-to-wire fashion. Now, something must have happened because she missed time after that race. I'll really take her first start off the layoff with a grain of salt. She caught a very sharp horse that won by the length of the stretch and an open non-winners of one other then. She moved to Tapeta for her most recent start. They dropped her in for 35. She ran pretty well. Let's watch that race right now. She broke slow in that race. There was a solid pace up front. She gets to the outside, turning into the stretch, and she just can't run down this front-running winner. You see Arrow Shape changing back to her left lead near the wire. But she got a 62 Beyer for this race. She has been slow from the gate in her last couple of starts. If she can break better, however, she could benefit from a fast pace up front. And instead of coming from, 7, 8 lengths out of it at this distance, maybe she'll only be 4 or 5 out of it. I think she has what it takes at a price to at least crack the board and make your exotics. 10-1 on the morning line, coming off a 62 Beyer. I believe that's the best last figure of this race. The 3 is David's Rose. David's Rose, very impressive last time out. She is a 2-time winner. Let's watch her second lifetime start against starter optional claiming competition. She is the only 2-time winner in this field, and as you see, she took no prisoners. She cleared off from one of her outside posts. She had post 5 in a field of 6, made the lead in the rail going into the turn and sayonara. She wins by 12. She earned a 58 Beyer speed figure, and her speed plays well as the speed nearest the rail. I think there's enough synthetic pedigree here. The dam won 3 times on the turf. That dam has already foaled a synthetic winner. David's Rose might be better on dirt, but it's too early to tell whether she'll be a turf or a synthetic horse. The one race on turf came before blinkers were added to the equation. Since blinkers on, David's Rose, 3 starts, 2 wins. I think the blinkers woke her up, and I think she'll be fine on synthetic. Paco Lopez takes them out. Runaway Breeze is the number 4, turning all the way back from 1.70 miles. Runaway Breeze gets Lasix, as do all of these 3-year-old fillies. She's done some good work in her career on a synthetic surface. Stakes placed over the Tapeta at Presque Isle Downs during the fall. The problem is she's only gotten incrementally better. She earned a 60 Beyer speed figure last time out in that 2-turn race. It was a race where she pushed the pace down towards the inside, settled for the pocket on the backstretch, got to the outside, turning into the first lane and just sort of was an even one-paced finish. She flattened out. I think cutting back in distance is going to help her, especially if there is a fast pace, and at a big price, she's another that if she gets the right pace setup and trip, could liven up the exotics. The 5 Chocolosa, the 7 Naughty Naughty, both of them are trained by Larry Ravelli, and we have a formulator fact for the Ravelli barn. Over the past 2 years, with 3-year-olds moving from dirt to synthetic, 47% winners, a $2.48 ROI. It's a powerful move, and Chocolosa, the 5, is already very well versed in synthetic racing. She won the Arlington, Washington Lassie as a maiden in her most recent synthetic start over the summer. She was 36-1 in that race. I thought she ran really well. She got a great trip. She got a great setup. But she did some good things. She saved ground at the back of the pack, and she commenced an early move, leaving the backstretch, entering the turn while down inside. She found a tight spot inside the 5/16 pole, but she bowled her way through. The hole opened up down on the rail, and she shot on through to win. It was a really good-looking performance, and she took advantage of a fast pace, which could be a similar situation to what she's going to see on Wednesday. She tried dirt. She tried 2 turns last time out. She basically lost all hope at the start of that race. We've seen an also-ran, the 8th-place finisher, come back and do good things, winning a state-bred maiden with a 59 buyer, and then finishing second in a synthetic allowance race with a 61. Chocolosa's got that stakes win. It's got the formulator fact. She's a synthetic horse. She's going to be running on late. She's likely not going to be 36-1 as she was in the Arlington, Washington Lassie, especially with Arad Ortiz aboard. The 6 is Fire and Spice. Let's watch Fire and Spice's one and only start. It came over this course, over this trip, in a maiden optional claiming race, and I like that she was able to come from off the pace in here. She didn't have a great trip in this race, and she was able to run down a horse that ran well in her own right. The 5th-place finisher would come back to run second in a state-bred maiden on dirt with a 44 buyer speed figure. So this race has come back fairly live. She's going to have to improve from a buyer standpoint. She only got a 42 for the race we just saw. But again, these fillies are so lightly raced. She's getting Lasix for the first time. It could easily spark the needed improvement. 5-1 seems a little light with Junior Alvarado aboard, considering she'll will need to improve about 20 buyer points. But I like that she was able to overcome a little adversity in her debut. Naughty Naughty, career debut on synthetic for Ravelli. Ravelli's awesome first time out. And Ravelli, as we see, does very well with synthetic horses, and Naughty Naughty was bet to odds on, did not disappoint. She went right to the lead. The buyer light, 39. Then a little bit of a layoff. They ran her on dirt last time out in a starter allowance at Churchill Downs. She showed big speed once again, and dirt probably is not her game. It was a race where the runner-up would come back to run second at Oaklawn Park in a $50,000 race with a 62 buyer. Naughty Naughty's fast. She's back on a synthetic surface. I expect her to push the pace. Poema, let's watch her most recent start. Maiden special weight at Gulfstream, 6 furlongs. Big speed from the start. Keeps right on going. Wins with a 51 buyer. She's raced once on synthetic in the past. It was her career debut. She was 44-1A. She was in against open horses, and she was in against a sharp horse. The winner, Strategy Queen, would come back to win. I like that she was able to show speed on synthetic. I think she probably needed the race. She's moved forward since that start. Getting back to synthetic, speed on the outside. Panici, I think, has got to go. I don't think he can really wait and want to track outside the 3 and the 7, but this horse will be in position when they turn into the stretch. And the 5th-place finisher from the most recent race came right back to win, a maiden optional with a 68 buyer. Cause for concern analyzing the most recent race for Poema, that was a field of 9 maidens. 8 of them were first-time starters. The only one with experience was Poema. She had a big edge considering that situation. We'll take a look at my top selections for this race. I just want a price. I think they're evenly matched. David's Rose, the 3, I respect with the speed. Chocolosa, the 5, I think is going to get a good setup, getting back to synthetic. Those horses are going to take money, but I am worried about the situation of a duel with David's Rose and a couple of other speed horses, and Chocolosa is going to have to do this off of a September layoff. Arrow Shape, the number 2, is maybe a bit class compromised, but certainly not figure compromised. Entering off a 62 buyer speed figure. She didn't break very well. She ran well last time out in her synthetic debut, and she might get another pace to attack here. Best of all is the price. She's 10-1 on the morning line. 2, 1, 3, and 4 for me. Race number 9 at Gulfstream Park on Wednesday is your DRF Formulator race of the day. Good luck.